You know, your house is always talking to you. That little flicker in the lights, that weird buzzing sound from an outlet, those aren't just random quirks. They're actually part of a language. And today, we're going to learn how to decode these electrical warnings, the ones you really can't afford to ignore.
So yeah, your home is constantly sending out signals, and some of the most important ones come from your electrical system. Your lights, your outlets, that big metal box in the garage. The real question isn't if it's talking, it's are you listening?
All right, let's start with a classic, flickering lights. It's so easy to just brush this off, like something out of a spooky movie. But in reality, it's often a sign that you've got an unstable electrical connection somewhere. It could also just be your circuit screaming, "Hey, I'm overloaded over here." Next up, the circuit breaker that just refuses to cooperate. Look, a breaker is your system's emergency brake. When it trips, it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, protecting you from an overload or a really dangerous fault. But if you find yourself flipping the same switch back on again and again, that's a massive clue that the circuit is being pushed way past its limits.
Now this one is non-negotiable. If you get even a whiff of that distinct, sharp smell of burning plastic coming from an outlet or your panel, that is a serious red flag. It means wiring is getting so hot that the insulation is literally melting, and that is a situation that can lead to a fire fast.
And what about sparks when you plug something in? Okay, a tiny, quick little flash can be normal sometimes. But what we're talking about are big, noticeable sparks. That usually means you've got loose connections inside the outlet, and that creates a fire hazard every single time you use it.
But here's the thing. All these things we can see and smell, they're often just the tip of the iceberg. They're clues pointing to much bigger, hidden problems that are lurking just behind your walls.
A huge part of the problem is this massive gap between the past and the present. A lot of older homes have these 100-amp panels that were totally fine for the 1970s. But then, fast forward to today, we add central air, an electric car charger, maybe a home office with a bunch of computers, and suddenly that old panel is dangerously out of its league. That's why a 200-amp service isn't just a nice upgrade, it's pretty much the standard for how we live now.
And besides just being too small, some of these old panels are famously unsafe. I'm talking specifically about brands like Federal Pacific and Zinsco. These have a long, well-documented history of just not working. They fail to trip when they're supposed to. That means the one safety feature you're counting on might not be there when you need it, which creates a major fire risk. If you see one of these names on your panel, you need to get it inspected, period.
Another one of these hidden dangers from that same era is aluminum wiring. It was used in a ton of homes because it was cheaper than copper, but it has a really dangerous flaw. Every time you run electricity through it, the wire heats up and expands. Then it cools down and contracts. This constant movement, day after day, year after year, can cause the connections at your outlets and switches to work themselves loose. It's like a ticking time bomb inside your walls.
So here's the real problem, right? It's not just that the connections get loose. A loose connection creates a tiny gap. Electricity has to jump that gap, and that creates resistance, which creates dangerous heat and arcing. It's this vicious cycle that just gets worse and worse over time, and that's what dramatically increases the risk of a fire.
Now, let's switch gears a bit and talk about how your environment, where you live, can play a huge role in all of this. We're going to use coastal California as an example to see just how much your location can speed up these electrical problems. So, if you live in a coastal area, you're really fighting a battle on a few different fronts. You've got that salty air, which is incredibly corrosive. You've got high humidity, which can break down wire insulation. Plus, these areas often have older houses mixed with really high power demands. All of these things together create a perfect storm for electrical failures.
Think about it like this. That beautiful, fresh ocean air you love, it's basically like rust for your home's electrical system. That salt and moisture are constantly working to corrode all the metal connections. And as we just learned, corrosion creates resistance, and resistance creates heat, which is the #1 enemy of a safe electrical system.
Okay, so we're dealing with aging systems and tough environments. What does a safe, modern electrical system actually look like? Let's get into the solutions and break down what the professionals do to fix these risks head-on.
A real pro doesn't just start guessing. They follow a very clear process. It always starts with diagnosis, using cool tools like thermal imaging cameras to actually see the heat from bad connections that are totally invisible to the naked eye. Then they do the repair, using the right materials like corrosion-resistant parts for coastal homes. And finally, they test everything to make sure it's perfect, and they document all the work. It's systematic and it's safe. Now, any modern system is going to include some key safety devices. First up is the GFCI. Think of this as your personal bodyguard against electric shock. It's a smart outlet that's constantly monitoring the flow of electricity. If it senses even the tiniest imbalance, like if electricity is going somewhere it shouldn't, like through you, it shuts the power off in a fraction of a second. It's why they're required anywhere there's water.
And the other key player is the AFCI. If the GFCI is your bodyguard, think of the AFCI as a smoke detector for your wiring. It's a special kind of circuit breaker that's always listening for the specific electrical noise that a dangerous arc makes, the kind caused by a loose wire or a nail in the wall. When it hears that sound, it cuts the power, stopping a fire before it even has a chance to start.
So let's just lay it all out in one place. You fight the fire risk from an old overloaded panel by upgrading to a modern 200-amp service. You get rid of the risk from aluminum wiring by replacing it with reliable, stable copper. You prevent electric shock in your kitchen and bathrooms with GFCI outlets, and you prevent fires in your bedrooms and living rooms with AFCI breakers. It's really a four-part strategy that takes care of the biggest electrical risks in pretty much any home.
And really, that brings us to the most important question of all. Your electrical system is like the central nervous system of your home, and it works silently, around the clock, 24/7. Ignoring its warning signs isn't really a gamble, it's a choice. But understanding them, that empowers you to make a different choice, one that ensures your home isn't just powered, but that it's truly protected for years to come.